whatever doesn't show up, stop. Y'all, it's not good. If you're in here and when if our speaker starts getting up here and she starts talking and you're back there chatting, stop. You'll yell at them? Come on. Come on. I'll kick you out. I ain't scared, y'all. Hey, is this being recorded? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So, for those that don't know, next Saturday, Agape House is celebrating 19 years. Yeah. And there is a big deal that's happening right here, from selling plants to having food to I cannot do it, to an auction and speakers. And what day is it? I didn't say a thing. But it's a big deal, and it's a big deal for the Agape House, and we are just honored that we get to be the ones to host their event. And if y'all are looking for a place to go, I know the Agape folks will be here, but if you're not part of that, come. It starts at 3:00. We can get you some. You can buy some plants on 420. You can buy food. There's going to be auction items. Ride a pony. Come on. You're bringing baby pigs? The baby pigs will be here. Y'all, next Saturday right here, 3:00. Okay? All right. So now is the time that we've all been waiting for. And so let me talk about Jamie for a minute. Oh, I don't know. Wait, let me say, is there anybody that can describe Jamie in a word? Oh. Throw them out to me. Caring, ruthless? Oh, fearless. I said, what? Anybody else got any? Yes, man. You said ruthless. Wait, what was that one? Unwavering. Yeah. I love that. I love that so much, because when I see her now, when you see these two together, the light just glows. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I'm so in love. Oh, I'm so in love with you. That's what happens with these two, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And in Walmart, until you see them shopping together, until you see, it's my toothpaste. But it's beautiful, y'all. And what I see is that these two are overcomers. They have been through it, and now they're living it. And they're reaching people. You heard the words described by her. It's really both of them, and I love this couple both so much, y'all. So, y'all, are you on the mic tonight? Are you on the mic? Okay, all right. So, y'all, help me welcome Jamie to the stage.
All right. Yeah, this is dangerous. Yeah. Well, let me just start by saying I'm not a good speaker, and I did not have time to prepare. But I can and always will just keep it real. So, oh, thank you. I'd like to start off my testimony with a reading out of Isaiah. This is something that grabbed a hold of me in McPherson Prison. I'm not going to read all of it. This is a king had become deathly ill, and God reached down and saved him. And although I wasn't physically deathly ill, I was spiritually deathly ill. It says, what can I say? He has spoken to me, and he himself has done it. I walk alone slowly all the years of my life because of the bitterness of my soul. Lord, by such things people live, and in every one of them my spirit finds life. You have restored me to health and let me live. Indeed, it was for my own well-being that I had such intense bitterness. But your love has delivered me from the pit of destruction. For you have thrown all my sins behind your back. For Sheol cannot thank you, death cannot praise you. Those who go down to the pit cannot hope for your faithfulness. The living and only the living can thank you as I do today. Now, the part of that really gets to me is where it says the intense bitterness. Because I can take you all the way back to 7 years old in '89 when my life just flipped upside down. Now, birth to 7 was great. My grandparents raised me. They were like my parents. My mom was always there, but wasn't. If it wasn't a man or drug or working the bar, I didn't really see much of her. And I didn't miss her absence then. She had a full-time boyfriend from the time that I was 8 months old to the day we moved. He was like my dad. I was a grandpa's baby. He brought me home 3 days from the hospital, and that was my ride or die until the day he passed on. And, if he was out in the yard, if he was working on his old Scout trying to get it running, if he was down in the basement cleaning his guns, I was there. I was a tomboy. Now, my grandparents had me in church every time the doors was open in a frilly dress and patent leather shoes. My grandma pinching me because I didn't want my hair combed. Maybe a little mean, as Jason reminded me for the third time here lately, that me and his older brother might have broken his leg when he was little. Yeah, that was a little mean. Anyway, 7 years old, '89 hit, and my grandmother worked for AT&T, and they were closing down shop in St. Louis. And they give her 3 options: either find a new job, relocate to Houston, Texas, or Atlanta, Georgia. So Atlanta it was. My mom had never had her own place. We always lived with them, so we went with them. And I don't know if anybody in here ever lived in Atlanta or experienced it in the 80s or 90s, but it is a whole different culture change. Let me just put it that way. So before they found their house, we moved into an apartment complex. And we moved into a predominantly black apartment complex. And when I say that, I mean we were one of 3 white families in a 400 to 500 unit. And they were mean. Back in the 80s and 90s, the older generation, they didn't too much like white people down there. And it trickled down to their kids. Just like us, the generational curses, how we act towards people, it follows through to our kids. And I would say they were mean. I hated going to school, going outside, going to the bus stop. And this one, I'll give it to him, he was persistent. And we got into so many fist fights, and one day I blacked his eye, he busted my lip, and I got mad, and I went upstairs and grabbed my BB gun. I've always had some issues. I went down there and started pumping him full of BBs. Well, about 10 minutes later, hearing his mama come, she was going to whoop my grandma. And thank God my grandpa just got home from work, so he handled it because he wasn't about the nonsense. But all jokes aside, I hated being there. I hated my life. I was depressed. On top of that, I didn't understand why my mom couldn't stay in St. Louis with the guy who I thought of as my dad. I didn't understand why he couldn't come with us. I didn't know why we moved away from every person and family that we ever knew. It was horrible. So my bitterness started at 7 years old, and hate and anger and depression, all that stuff just balled up. And at some point you know better, you do better. But I just continued to just let that go. About 11 years old, I started becoming friends with this little black kid named Devontae. He was raised by his uncles who were gangbangers. So we started hanging out with the older teens. Well, by 13, I spent my 13th birthday in RYDC juvenile with my first charges: grand theft auto, possession of a firearm, and destruction of personal property greater than $20,000, which my mom was responsible for. And I remember my grandpa in the courtroom, my mom on one side saying, well, he taught her how to drive and shoot at 7, and my grandpa begging the judge, please let my baby come home. He did not. He sentenced me to military boot camp in Macon, Georgia. That was horrible. With my mouth and my attitude, though, I spent the first month and a half in the hole, and I stayed there way longer than I should have because I didn't come out until right as I was 15. My mom had finally got her own place about an hour north of my grandparents. Now, when she got to Atlanta, she did the same thing: men, drugs, work. But now she got a daytime job, so the time that I did get to spend with my mom was with a man, bottom of the barrel, of course, biker, bouncer. And then I noticed her absence, and then I wanted it because I had all these anger, depression, all of that, and then all I wanted was my mom, and I didn't get that other than a few short hours. And like I said, we were with somebody if it was. I continued just to live in misery. I remember I called my aunt and uncle because my mom at this time, when she got her own place and I got out, she was on crack and heroin. So I called my grandparents to come get me, called and begged my aunt and uncle to let me come up to St. Louis and live with them. I got there, of course, got in with the wrong people. I got off probation on my 16th birthday and dropped out of school the very next day. They caught on about a month later, and I got a job. They helped me get my first little car. And then I just floated through life. From 16 to 20, I'd go back and forth between St. Louis and Atlanta, just partying. 20, I met my kid's dad. Probably not another good decision I've ever made. I met him. To be honest, I really didn't even like him at the time. But I said, I'm just being honest. Listen, I'm just honest, y'all. I told him, I said, I'm homesick. I'm going home. You can go or stay. I don't care. Well, he's like, I'm up for a new place. So shortly after we got to St. Louis, I found out I was pregnant. 5 months into my pregnancy, he's already running the streets in St. Louis. I said, if you don't respect me now, you never will. So we never even had a relationship. We would just live together off and on after that. But I had my daughter. We had a horrible miscarriage, and I had my son, and I got my tubes tied. And we continued to do that vicious cycle, living with each other. Right after my son was born, we were already pushing weed. We had met this guy up in North St. Louis, started moving coke. I tell people, sadly, I had my son in the pumpkin seat, my daughter's in the back of a Cadillac going up and down 44 between St. Louis and Washington, Missouri, with a 25-pound block of cocaine, and underneath a blanket of that is AK-47s. I mean, never made good decisions. I've always just been ignorant, foul-mouthed. I just didn't care. Feelings and emotions never been in my vocabulary whatsoever. 07 hit, and I tried coke for about 2 months and quickly decided that was not the drug for me. But my kid's dad had one of them little state spoons you get at truck stops. She knows a lot of this. And he was shoveling it in, and I was like, you know what? My grandma had retired with AT&T in Atlanta, and she had moved back home here to Arkansas. I said, I'm packing up the kids, and I'm leaving. You can come down there if you can get clean, but I'm out of here. So we got down to Arkansas, and I somewhat straightened my life up, got a GED, got a job, started doing private nursing. About '09, he moved down here. Worked for the first time since we had been together. So by 2011, when I moved here in '07, I met a guy that I just had a casual friendship with. He worked full time, never touched dope, but moved it, and I knew what he did. I just never questioned it. So in 2011, we moved here to Paragould, over on Foxfire on the west side of town. $1,000 a month home, beautiful. We moved in 2011. By February or March of 2012, he had done lost his job for sexual harassment and decided he wanted to be kingpin in Paragould. Look, I'm just being honest. All of this time, though, my friend that I met in '07, I would pick up money and make money on the side, and I just justified it because I didn't touch dope. I think I had smoked meth one time when I was 16, 17. Was I 18? Smoked it on some foil. It was really weird. Never touched it again. But anyway, I was moving behind the scenes, picking up money, moving weight, and like I said, I just justified it because I never touched it physically. Well, another bad decision in my life is right here in 2012. Instead of packing my house up and moving back into my grandparents' house and just calling it quits, that's when my life shifted even further, and I spiraled down that road. Always thought I was better because at that point I still had never done dope, meth, whatever you want to call it. Most I had done from time to time was smoke weed. So I had also started collecting for the Mississippi County Boys and some other people around here. Money, things, people, whatever it took. She's making me laugh, but in all honesty, now I know it was sickening. I mean, by the end of it, I had 27 kidnappings, home invasions, door kicking. I mean, just ignorant, vile stuff. I mean, that's just who I was. I did not care. I would talk to you any kind of way I wanted to. I think that power can't touch, or any high can't touch the feeling you get when you have power. And I craved it. I loved it. I can't sit here and lie to you and tell you that I didn't like the things that I was doing, because at the time I did. Right at that time, my kid's dad, he was doing business here in Paragould, and we had about 4 runners. I'm going to give you just a glimpse into the person I was. And then I'll follow it with a personal experience. So my kid's dad, he dealt with this female here in town that moved quite a bit of weight for us. I get a phone call one day, I'm riding through town. This is so-and-so, so-and-so. I was like, okay. She said, well, I just thought you and Wise might want to know that so-and-so's on their way up to the police station with a black backpack. And I'm like, oh. A couple days before, he had smoked too much dope and got high and put a 9mm, a big scale, little scale, a couple different size baggies in a black backpack, took it over to her house on Bertig and gave her a 1/4 ounce of dope and said, hold it. I turned the car around, hit Court Street, and there she was at the police station, hit Rector Road, grabbed my 12 gauge, went to my house. Told him what was going on. Next morning, my kids are on the couch, watching SpongeBob movie, eating cereal. I go to her apartment, say what I got to say to get her in the car, and I could just tell on the look of her face she knew. I got her back to my house. We had the little white house on 3rd and Pearl, gravel lot. I wish it'd burn to the ground, honestly. Am I on live? Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Um, oh, gosh. Anyway, I hope I don't get set on fire. Anyway, one way in and one way out. Sorry. The only window that opened was a kitchen window, and it opened like that much. Anyway, we go down the 2 steps down into my bedroom. She sat on the bed. I punched her in her face. She went down. She come back up. I hit her with the butt of the gun. She come back up again, and I put the barrel in her mouth. I'm not going to go in anymore. Just giving you an idea. That's putting it mildly who I was. Well, whirlwind of chaos. Let's go 2 months. My kid's dad flips on a dime. I mean, out of nowhere, just flips. And in that same house on 3rd and Pearl, me and my kids went through a violent living hell. Although he didn't never do nothing to my kids, but they would hear. And my daughter reminded me, I think we block things out when traumatic things happen. I remember nothing about it until she said it. I think me and Lisa, I think we were riding together with her. I don't know, she said something about a blowtorch. So our kids are watching even if we don't think that they are. But they went through all of that with me. And for about 2.5 months, he kept me and my kids hostage in there. I think Big Mike and 2 other people were the only ones allowed to come in and out at that point. And like I said, he would, if not every day, every other day, would come in and just beat me and just do horrible things to me. Our house got raided. The most worst night of all, I kept blacking out, but in that same room that I had that girl in, he's beating me to the point that I'm blacking out and puts a gun in my mouth. You know what I mean? I'm going to read this to you. This is Isaiah 13:11. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogance of the proud to cease, and will lay down the haughtiness of the terrible. I try to embed this in my son's mind now. You get back what you put out, hands down. Because now, after all that happened, shortly after he finally got picked up, they kept letting him out. And I didn't have the option of leaving because he had told me, he had started shooting dope. That's why he got so insane. But I didn't know it. I was green to the fact of all that. He told me, you try to take my kids and go down to your grandparents, I'll put a bullet in each one of their heads. And he meant it. I mean, he was a monster. But I didn't realize I can call him a monster all day. But before that happened to me, I was the monster. I mean, horrible. Well, our house got raided. They picked him up finally, let him back out. Some crazy things happened. My kids got left at a bus stop in the rain. I had to sign over temporary guardianship of my kids to my mom. She had come down from St. Louis. It was August 2013, 15 minutes after she hit the highway, I did my first shot of dope, and it was on. Never looked back. 2014, one of those kidnappings that I did was a Greene County State informant. After they raided my house, Scott Pillows called me in, wanting me to file a report against my kid's dad, which I did, and he followed it up with, you're being charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment. I got picked up on it I got picked up on it a week later. My grandpa bonded me out probably about 4 times. Finally, Joe Banks was like, they moved her bond to $175,000. We're not touching it. First week of 2014 in January, I got picked up on for the final time, and I set 6 months. I got out. They ended up having to give me time served because when Greene County filed my charges, they put my misdemeanor on my felony and my felony on my misdemeanor. And Will Keeter's like, it's your lucky day. I'm like, I've sit 6 months in the county. He's like, well, you get to go home today. They give me probation and time served. And I quickly messed that up with dust in a bag. I don't even know how I got in my stuff, charged with possession. So I had that charge. I got picked up again in 2015, and I'm writing my grandpa in the kiosk, and he's like, you're going to Agape House. And I was like, no, I'm not. He said, oh, Paul, let it be there to get you tomorrow night. You're going. I went in 2015 on a court order. I was in the house with Lisa Ann Scott. Left on court order. I went in and out of the Agape House quite a bit, but by that point, I really had no desire to get clean, and I had no desire to face any of the chaos that I created, that I went through. I remember the third time I kind of come back, Lisa and Samantha Higdon, Ryan, come to Memphis and got me. But I was too sick to stay. My grandpa come and picked me up from there, and I just decided to go off in the world again. And now we'll get to some light. He didn't come to make bad people good. He came to make dead people alive. So, October 17th, 2017 was probably the best day of my life. I got picked up for the last time. I woke up 7 days later in lockdown in Greene County, flat on my back, staring up at the ceiling. I don't even know how I got there, to be honest with you. I mean, my body was shutting down. I have diabetes and other health issues, and of course, doing all that stuff. I was doing coke, ecstasy, probably putting about a quarter ounce of dope in my arm a day by the time I got arrested. But I remember waking up and just staring up at the ceiling, and then tears just start rolling down my face. And it just felt like coals of fire burning the sides of my cheeks. And that's the first and only time I've ever cried out to God. And I guess I was screaming it because the guards come to the door a few minutes later. But I remember screaming out, God, if you're real, just take this from me. Take whatever it is about this life that I find so appealing, power, the money, whatever it is, take it from me. Because I can't do this anymore. And I don't want to do it anymore. Like I said, the guards come to the door. They took me down to the nurse's station. A few days later, I got back into population. And I'll give credit where credit is due. I got on the kiosk, messaged my grandpa. I said, I'm not going for no rehab. I said, I can feel it. I'm going to prison. Started messaging Lisa, all woe is me. If it wasn't for this wouldn't have happened. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be right here. And she's like, well, that's all well and good, sister, but at some point you have to take responsibility for yourself. Now, in the same thought process, I'm like, who the but then I had my aha moment. I had that aha moment that I can go way back to when I was, even when I was 13, getting in all that trouble. I could have made better choices, but I didn't. I had to write stuff down or I'll squirrel. I get that from Sonny. So Joel 2:25, and I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. Another good verse I had got in McPherson. Listen, y'all, prison saved my life. The Agape House, I learned tools that I still use to this day. I love the Agape House. It took more for me. I was a little bit more hard-headed. But I come out of prison with such an appreciation for life. I could care less about a sunrise, sunset, a tree, a bird, before I went into prison. And now I'll stop in the middle of the road to take a picture of a sunset or to stop for a squirrel, just to be honest. But while I was in prison, I was able to take a good look at myself and realize who I never want to be again. I don't ever want to hurt someone mentally, physically. But so when I stand up here, some of you might not understand, some of you will. It took every bit of everything that I ever went through to make me who I am today. It's horrible that my kids had to experience that with me, because let me tell you something. My son was in a mental hospital for the first year and a half after they went up and lived with my mom. My daughter just shut completely down. Now my daughter's still going through some mental issues. My son is toting guns, acting crazy up in St. Louis. I'm scared to death every day that I'm going to get a phone call that he's either been shot or shot somebody, trying to live out me and his dad's world that we put him in. But I thank God every day that I not only went to prison, but I had that time to reflect on my life. And I went into the PALS program. I was in those books every time I could be. The concordances, different Bibles. I had about 6 or 7 laid out. You can get that. But I had so much peace and joy and freedom in my life sitting behind the walls of McPherson Prison. A week before I come home, I called home and my grandma told me that her and my grandpa had a non-college appointment. Lisa come and pick me up because my grandpa was too sick. 2 weeks after I got home, me and my grandma and grandpa went and found out he had stage 4 of the bone, liver, kidneys, and pancreas. But now my grandpa's a fighter. He opted for chemo and radiation, and if it wasn't for me staying connected with the Agape House and the people that I chose to surround myself with, I never would have made it through that. Just because you get clean and you're going through your recovery doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, because it is not. But it teaches you how to handle those situations. Now, my mom, I got out 2018. I started working for the Agape House in October 18. My mom was still well into her addiction. Pills, and somebody introduced her to meth. That was the wrong idea. Seriously, bad. So my uncle calls. She's in Farmington, Missouri. My uncle, he's like, I cannot do this no more. You got to come get her right now. I went up, checked her into the hospital. Went up there a few days later after she landed a little bit. I said, Mom, you need to come to the Agape House. And let me tell you something. My mom was in a, 30, 40-year addiction. Pills, heroin, crack, you name it, it was there. She went into the Agape House and could not stay because of the smells and stuff. Now, most of us, we don't have that miraculous change where everything is just great and we've got it beat. We're usually hard-headed and stubborn, and it takes us a while. And your recovery, just doesn't stop when you get clean. Then you have to start working at it. You have to start filtering through all that stuff. But my grandpa, like I said, he was doing the chemo, and he would just sit and cry and scream. And that was breaking me down to the point where God changed my mom from a 40-year addiction in the matter of 2 weeks. And she was able to come live with my grandparents and I moved in with Sonny first until I got my house. But God just works miracles in our lives. And he got my mom clean in such a short amount of time, and it still blows me away. But she was able to take care of my grandparents, and I still took them to every doctor's visit, hospital stay. And he passed away January 30th of 2020. So he just 2 months shy of 2 years. I started Agape House in October 2018. April 8th, 2019, my mom got clean. By 2020, I had all my fines paid off. I was off parole since 2014. 2020 is about the time that me, Lisa, and a few other ladies, first we had a small Bible study at my house, because let's be for real, we don't always feel comfortable around everybody. And you need to have you a small group of people who you can trust and talk to, of your own sex. Of your own sex. But we started a Bible study, and then we started reaching out to different ministries, and we would go and give our testimonies and just speak life into these girls. I'm not really a people person. My second year into Agape House, I had to pray for compassion. I've had discernment since I was a kid, but compassion I had to pray for. Like, God's still working on me. 2020, 2021, I did leadership at Paragould and became a member of the Chambers of Commerce. Now, my job with the Agape House is working with probation and parole, lawyers, courts. By 2022, the family restoration that I had been praying for since I was sitting in prison had happened. All relationships in my family were all mended. 2023, I can't read my own writing. Hold on. That's bad. Between 2020 and 2023, that's when God really started working on me. 3.5 years ago, you probably would have never heard relationship or marriage or anything like that come out of my mouth. But God started really convicting me because I was in a leadership role and I was over women. And although my personal life never was in front of the Agape House, God was convicting me. And then I started praying, God, when are you going to bring me a husband? Well, I mean, I'm not getting high, but I'm still living ungodly. So why is he going to give me a husband? Y'all, I have the best. I just have to say. He is so good to me, and he is so giving to people and has such a big heart. I appreciate you so much. So 2023, I got married. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say, whether you're in the Agape House or if you're in any kind of ministry, like I said, don't think just because you get clean, everything is going to be perfect. And it's not going to happen right away. But there are those cases like my mom that it did, but usually it takes us a while. You got to be able to meet God halfway. If you're not willing to put in the work, why should he? Probably for the last 6 to 8 months, I get up, I play worship music, I read my devotionals, I get into my Bible, and that has become my daily routine. I love life now, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I can't take none of it back, nor would I. And I love y'all.